I asked my son why he had been avoiding me for weeks, and then he said something that broke my heart into pieces. "You're not my real mother." I stood frozen. My chest tightened. My hands, they trembled without me noticing. Everything I thought I knew about our family, about our life together, vanished in that single sentence. How could he say this? After all the years, the care, the sacrifices. I wasn't just hurt, I felt invisible, betrayed, rejected. And that's when I realized, nothing would ever be the same again. But what he said next would leave me questioning everything I believed about my own life. I never imagined the day would come when my own son would look at me with those words, those cruel words, and shatter everything I thought I was. My name is Linda, I'm 62 years old, and for nearly 4 decades, I poured every ounce of love I had into raising him. Every scraped knee, every sleepless night. I was there. I stayed awake through fevers that burned his tiny body. I held his hand when he learned to ride his bike. I was there cheering the loudest at every school play, every game, every little victory. I planned his birthdays, every year, from the first candle to the last slice of cake. I made sure he felt celebrated, loved, like he was the center of my universe. And yet, somehow, all of those years of care, of sacrifice, of sleepless nights and endless worry, it felt invisible to him now. I kept our home running. I cooked his favorite meals, packed his lunchboxes, listened to his stories even when I was tired from work. I made this house a home, a place where he could feel safe, where he could feel loved. But the thing about love, the thing about family, it doesn't always protect you from betrayal. And that day, I learned that the love I gave, the identity I built for myself, as a mother, could be questioned in a single sentence. I remember the morning before it all happened. The house was quiet. I was 62 years old, and yet I felt younger and more hopeful than ever for my family. He barely looked at me over breakfast. I tried to talk, to ask if something was wrong, but he just shrugged and mumbled, avoiding my eyes. I felt a knot in my chest, something I hadn't felt in years, fear, confusion, and a deep ache. Something was happening between us, something I didn't understand yet. And that's when I made the mistake, or maybe it was courage. I asked him. I asked the question that would change everything. "Why are you avoiding me, Daniel? Why won't you even look at me anymore?" He looked up. For the first time, I saw the distance in his eyes. The hesitation. The shame, maybe anger. And then, he said it. Those words I'll never forget. "You're not my real mother." I froze. My heart, my very soul, it felt like it had been ripped from me. How could the boy I raised, the boy I loved unconditionally, say something like that? And in that moment, I realized, my world, my family, the life I thought I knew, was changing forever. How would you react if your child suddenly rejected everything you'd done for them? After that morning, after Daniel had said those words, everything changed. He became different. Subtle at first, almost invisible changes, but enough to make my heart pound with worry. The cheerful boy who once ran into my arms every morning, the young man who called me daily, even when busy, had vanished. Calls went unanswered. Texts that once overflowed with emojis and stories of his day, were now short, cold, clipped. Busy, he'd type. Not now. And then, silence. Days would pass without a word. I tried to brush it off at first, maybe work? Maybe stress? But deep down, I knew. Something was wrong. Something, bigger than I could see. And then came the little things, small but sharp, like needles. The mysterious phone call in the middle of the night, his whispered conversations when he thought I was in another room, the way he suddenly started locking his bedroom door. One evening, I found a note tucked under the couch cushion. Just a few words, but they sent chills down my spine. Not everything is as it seems. I didn't know whether to be angry, terrified, or heartbroken. Who was leaving these messages? And what did it mean? I felt my stomach tighten. Was Daniel hiding something from me? Was he being influenced by someone else? He started staying out late. I'd watch the clock from the kitchen window, my heart hammering with every passing hour, praying he was safe. But when he returned, there was a distance, an emptiness in his eyes. No warmth, no laughter, no glance that said, "Mom, I love you." I tried, oh, how I tried, to reach him. I left notes in his room. I cooked his favorite meals. I stayed up waiting, hoping to hear the familiar sound of his key in the lock. But every effort felt invisible. Then there were the friends. A woman he called sometimes, her voice soft but commanding over the phone. I could hear her laughter, distant, but it had a sharpness that made me uneasy. Why had she never called before? Who was she? And why did Daniel seem afraid, almost embarrassed, when speaking to her? I began noticing little habits, tiny but telling. His clothes, always neatly folded, not thrown in the hamper like he used to. His desk, organized meticulously, with papers I didn't recognize. And the way he avoided me at the dinner table, always on his phone, eyes darting toward some unseen presence. I remember one evening, standing at the bottom of the stairs, watching him scroll through his phone in the dim light, the glow reflecting in his distant eyes. My heart ached. I whispered his name softly, almost afraid to break the spell of silence. "Daniel, are you okay?" He froze. His fingers stopped mid-scroll. And he said something that made my chest tighten. "Mom, don't worry about me. I've got things handled." Handled. That single word, it wasn't reassuring. It was a warning. A door closing. A barrier between us I didn't understand. I tried to press further, to reach through whatever invisible wall had been built, but he turned and left the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my chair by the window, hands trembling over my knitting, listening to the soft hum of the city outside. My thoughts raced. Who was he becoming? Was the boy I raised, the son I loved, still in there somewhere? Or had he changed, beyond my recognition? And then I remembered something, a small, almost forgettable detail from weeks before. Daniel had laughed at a comment about his real mother, brushing it off as a joke. At the time, I had smiled, laughed along, thinking it was nothing. But now, it felt like a warning I had missed. A hint of what was to come. Was this distance, this coldness, something I could repair? Or was it already too late? I had to find out. I had to understand what, or who, was driving a wedge between us. But the more I watched him, the more I realized, the answers were not going to come easily. And maybe, just maybe, the truth would be far more shocking than I could imagine. What would you do if your child suddenly became a stranger to you? The evening was quiet, too quiet. The house smelled faintly of dinner I hadn't touched, and the soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound breaking the silence. I could feel the tension as soon as I stepped inside the living room. Something had shifted. Daniel, my son, was sitting in his room, the glow from his laptop casting harsh shadows across his face. I could see it, the tight line of his jaw, the slight tremor in his fingers as he typed. My heart twisted. I had raised him, sacrificed everything for him, and now, he looked at me like I was a stranger. I cleared my throat, my voice shaking slightly. "Daniel, can we talk?" He didn't respond. Not even a glance. The sound of the keyboard clicked through the tense silence. I felt my chest tighten. Memories of him as a child, scraped knees, bedtime stories, whispered "I love you," flooded through me. Had it all been meaningless? "Daniel," I said a little louder, urgency creeping in. I need to understand. You've been avoiding me. Ignoring my calls. Staying locked in your room. Did I do something wrong?" Finally, he turned to face me. The look in his eyes, it was distant, guarded, almost unrecognizable. Then he said it. The words that shattered me in an instant. "You're not my real mother." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. My hands shook, and I had to clutch the edge of the doorframe to stay upright. "Excuse me?" My voice barely rose above a whisper. "You heard me," he said. I've known for months. You're not my mother. You've never been. His tone was calm, but the weight behind his words was crushing. I wanted to scream, to cry, to plead, but all I could manage was silence. My mind raced through decades of love, patience, and sacrifice. I had stayed up countless nights nursing him through fevers, wiping away tears, and cheering him on at every birthday, recital, and achievement. And now, he told me I was nothing to him. I sank into a chair, trying to steady my trembling hands. Daniel. I raised you. I fed you, clothed you, guided you. I have been your mother in every way that matters. How can you say that? He looked away, jaw tight, eyes shadowed with something I couldn't name. I needed to know who I really am. I needed to find her. The words hit me like a storm. Find her. The birth mother. My son had been carrying this secret with him all along, hiding letters and messages from me. I noticed a small pile of folded papers, almost hidden under textbooks on his desk. My heart ached. I picked up one of the letters. The handwriting was delicate, careful, almost reverent. It was from a woman claiming to be his birth mother. The words were full of longing, regret, and promises to reunite someday. I traced the letters with trembling fingers, trying to make sense of it all. My mind spun. Every birthday I had planned, every meal I had cooked, every hug and whispered word of encouragement, it felt like it had been weighed against a life I didn't know existed. And somehow, my son had believed this other woman's claim over me. I swallowed hard and looked at him. Daniel, do you even understand what you're saying? Do you understand what it feels like to be pushed away by the child you love more than anything? His eyes softened, just slightly, but his voice was still steady. I do, Linda. I wish it were different. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't lie to myself anymore. I need answers, and I need to find her. Anger flared inside me, rage at the secrecy, rage at the betrayal, rage at the son I had loved turning into a stranger before my eyes. But beneath the anger was sorrow. Deep, gnawing sorrow that settled into my bones, heavy and suffocating. I remembered the nights I had stayed awake, worrying about him, waiting for him to come home safely. The mornings I had whispered prayers for his happiness. And now, he didn't even see me as his mother. The thought made tears sting my eyes. I took a deep breath and tried to find my voice. Daniel. I don't care what the papers say. I don't care what anyone calls me. I am your mother. In heart, in spirit, in every way that truly matters. And I will not let this distance, grow between us without fighting for you. He looked at me, a flicker of something, regret, fear, or maybe understanding, passing across his face. But the tension didn't fully lift. I could see it in his eyes, he was torn, conflicted, and the road ahead was uncertain. That night, I sat by the window, looking out at the quiet street. The city lights flickered like distant stars, and I thought about the letters, the secrets, and the possibility of a family fractured beyond repair. My heart ached with a weight I couldn't put into words. And yet, I felt a spark. A determination. I would face the truth, uncover the secrets, and fight for my son. Not with anger, but with patience, love, and courage. Whatever it took. Would you fight to keep your bond, or step back and let the truth take its course? The house was quiet now, but the echoes of the confrontation lingered in every corner. I sank into my favorite chair, the worn cushions familiar beneath me. I closed my eyes and let the memories wash over me, soft and bittersweet. I remembered the early mornings, when Daniel was small. I would tiptoe into his room, careful not to wake him, and brush the hair from his forehead. Those little moments felt sacred. I could still smell the faint trace of baby shampoo, hear the soft, sleepy mom that made every exhaustion and worry melt away. Birthdays were a different kind of joy. I would plan everything down to the smallest detail, balloons in his favorite colors, cakes shaped like his favorite animals, little notes tucked into his lunchbox. I remembered the way his eyes sparkled with excitement, the way he would hug me tight and whisper, "Thank you, Mom." And vacations, oh, the vacations. The beach trips, the camping weekends, the little car rides to nowhere, just so we could talk and laugh. I can still feel the warm sand between my toes, the salty breeze on my face, the sound of his laughter mingling with the crashing waves. Those days seemed so simple, so filled with love. I opened an old photo album, the corners frayed and yellowed with age. Pictures of us together stared back at me. There we were, smiling for the camera, Daniel clutching a stuffed bear I had given him when he was sick, both of us frozen in a moment of pure joy. And yet, looking at them now, the images felt like someone else's life. Could all those years of care, patience, and love have been invisible to him? I traced my finger along a photograph of him at age 10, perched on my lap, eyes wide with wonder as I read a bedtime story. "Good night, my brave boy," I whispered softly to myself. The memory was so vivid that for a moment, I could almost believe that this was all still real, that the bond hadn't been fractured. But reality pressed in, heavy and unyielding. The words he had spoken, "You're not my real mother," clung to my heart like a cold, unwelcome fog. How could he say such a thing? How could the child I had nurtured, loved, and protected for over 35 years suddenly look at me as though I were a stranger? I felt a deep ache of invisibility, of being unrecognized, as if my years of sacrifice and love had been erased overnight. And in that ache, a quiet question lingered, one that I couldn't answer. How would you react if your own child said you weren't their real mother? I thought about the small daily routines we had shared. The mornings when I would make him breakfast, the way he would groggily sip his tea, murmuring thanks, Mom, before rushing off to school or work. Those small, everyday moments had seemed insignificant at the time, but now they felt like the very essence of motherhood, the invisible threads that had held our lives together. And yet, he had chosen to cut those threads without a second thought. The guilt and sorrow mingled with a strange sense of longing. I longed for the past, for the warmth of simple, uncomplicated days. I longed for a moment when our bond had been unquestionable, when I was seen as his mother in every sense of the word. And in that longing, I realized the depth of the loss, the weight of a life partially erased by secrets, misunderstandings, and the passage of time. But even in my sorrow, there was a quiet strength. A mother's love, I realized, was not measured by biology alone. It was measured in sleepless nights, in meals prepared with care, in whispered encouragements, and in standing steadfast when storms threatened to tear a family apart. I closed the photo album gently, letting it rest on my lap. My hands lingered on the cover, and I whispered a vow to myself: I would not vanish from his life, not now, not ever. I would reach for him, slowly, patiently, with love as my guide. And perhaps, in time, he would see me for who I had always been, his mother in every way that mattered. Questions swirled in my mind, and I spoke them aloud, almost as if voicing them would give me clarity. Did he feel guilty? Did he understand the pain he had caused? Could love truly bridge this new distance between us? The night deepened outside the window, and I sat in silence, letting the weight of my thoughts settle. Memories of laughter, bedtime stories, and family vacations mingled with the sting of recent revelations. I could almost hear his laughter echoing from years past, a gentle reminder of the bond that had once been unbreakable. And yet, I knew the road ahead would be long and uncertain. Secrets had been uncovered, truths had been revealed, and the question remained: could the love we shared withstand the weight of these discoveries? Do you believe that time and love can heal even the deepest family wounds? It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Daniel had begun to change, though I had been slow to notice at first. His laughter no longer rang through the house as it once did. The warmth that had always greeted me when I came home was replaced by polite nods and distant smiles. At night, I would watch him retreat to his room, the door clicking shut behind him, and a pang of worry would gnaw in my chest. I tried to reach him. Calls went unanswered. Messages were left unread. Even casual texts, "How was your day?" or "Dinner's ready," received cold, brief replies. My heart ached with each ignored attempt. It was like a slow, invisible wall had grown between us, one that I couldn't see the start of or find the end. At first, I blamed myself. Had I said something wrong? Had I failed as a mother in some small, unnoticed way? But deep down, something told me this wasn't about me, it was something else. Something hidden. I started paying closer attention. Every small detail became a clue: the hushed phone calls he would take in another room, the quick glances when friends or neighbors were mentioned, the mysterious laughter at times I couldn't hear. I checked his social media, not obsessively, just carefully, like a mother trying to understand a growing distance. There were messages I couldn't fully read without his password, but snippets were enough to unsettle me. A friend commenting, a nickname I didn't recognize, a photo of him smiling with someone else whose presence seemed different. My stomach tightened. Could it be someone had replaced me in his heart? I reached out to people I trusted, hoping for insight. Mrs. Franklin, our neighbor for over 20 years, hinted delicately, "I've noticed Daniel spending a lot of time with, well, someone new. He's always laughing when he's with her." My heart twisted. Who was this person? What role did they play that I had never noticed before? Even his teachers, once warm and casual in their conversations, mentioned subtle changes. "Daniel seems distracted," one said. "He's polite, of course, but he's not quite the same as he was last year." The words felt like soft echoes of the truth, fragments that pieced together a picture I wasn't ready to see. I began keeping notes, small, careful observations of his routines. When he left for work, did he take certain streets? Did he meet anyone in particular at the corner cafe? Each tiny piece of information became part of a growing puzzle. And with every observation, a new question rose in my mind: who had entered his life so completely that I felt like a stranger in my own home? The tension inside me grew with every discovery. My mornings started with a knot of anxiety, my nights ended with restless thoughts. I replayed conversations in my mind, searching for clues, wondering when the shift had started. Had I missed the signs all these years? Could I have done something differently? Then came the letters. I found them tucked in the back of a drawer, hidden beneath old tax documents, carefully folded, written in Daniel's handwriting. They weren't addressed to me. They weren't for me. But the words inside, expressions of gratitude, love, and secrets shared, were directed at someone I had never met. My hand shook as I read them, heart heavy with betrayal. It wasn't just letters. There were small objects, gifts, even notes left in places I never would have expected, tiny pieces of evidence that painted a picture of a bond forming elsewhere. And in each of these small revelations, I felt a flicker of fear. Fear that I had been slowly replaced, fear that my role in his life was being rewritten without my consent. I questioned myself constantly. Was I imagining it? Could love really shift so completely? The doubts gnawed at me, a mix of hope and despair tangled together. I remembered the nights I had stayed awake, watching him sleep, worrying about nightmares, illnesses, and broken hearts. Could all of that have been overshadowed by someone else? In my desperation, I confronted minor clues: a text message accidentally left open, a friend revealing, almost too casually, that Daniel had been spending weekends away with someone special. Each revelation pulled me deeper into an emotional labyrinth. I felt anger simmering beneath sorrow, anger at being shut out, at the secrecy, at the growing distance between a mother and her child. And yet, despite the pain, a small ember of courage remained. I couldn't let the unknown rule our lives. I had to understand. I had to find answers, not just for myself, but for the relationship I refused to let slip away. The stakes had never been higher. The bond one had built over decades, the sacrifices I had made, the countless ways I had loved him unconditionally, all of it felt threatened by shadows I could barely comprehend. Every new detail became a cliffhanger, a question hanging in the air: who had captured his trust, his heart, his laughter? Could I fight for my place, or was it already too late? And if someone had truly replaced me, what would I do when the truth finally revealed itself? The tension built not just in my mind, but in my heart and in every room of our home. I could almost feel his presence, and yet, it was accompanied by a haunting emptiness. His footsteps echoed differently, conversations seemed incomplete, and the warmth I had always relied upon was fading like a dimming light. At times, I caught glimpses of hope, smiles shared in passing, a brief acknowledgement, a remembered joke, but each one was fleeting, fragile, like a candle flickering in a draught. The hope kept me searching, kept me observing, kept me believing that connection, once forged so deeply, could be reclaimed. And I asked myself the question that haunted me in quiet moments: could love, built over decades, withstand this storm? Could the bond of mother and son survive the intrusion of secrets, lies, and hidden attachments? It was in that mixture of fear, heartbreak, and determination that I realized I could not stop now. I had to know the truth. Every clue, every letter, every whispered hint was a step toward understanding, toward confronting what had been hidden for so long. And I couldn't help but wonder. What would I discover next? And would I be ready to face it when it came? If you discovered hidden letters or messages from your loved one to someone else, what would you do? I remember that evening like it was carved into my memory in jagged, sharp lines. The sun had just begun to sink behind the trees, casting long shadows across the living room where I had waited for hours, nerves knotted tighter than I thought possible. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, filled with the silence of anticipation. Every clock ticked like a countdown to the moment I had both dreaded and longed for, the moment I would confront Daniel. When he finally entered, I couldn't help but notice how different he seemed. His shoulders were tense, his eyes avoiding mine, and yet, there was a certain calmness in his stride, a quiet resolve I didn't recognize. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of years of love, sacrifice, and trust pressing down on me. This is it, Linda, I thought. The moment everything changes, for better or worse. Daniel, I began, my voice slightly trembling, betraying the storm inside me. Why have you been avoiding me? He stopped in his tracks, eyes darting briefly to the floor before meeting mine with a coldness that felt foreign, almost unbearable. Because, he hesitated, his voice low and deliberate, because she's your replacement. The words hit me like a physical blow. Replacement? My mind reeled, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. Every memory of his childhood, the sleepless nights I had spent nursing him through fevers, the countless meals I had prepared, the birthdays, the school projects, the moments of laughter and tears, weighed on me all at once, and yet, according to him, it meant nothing. I stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the sofa for support. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely audible, a mix of disbelief and pain. He stepped closer, but not too close, as though maintaining a careful boundary. You're not my real mother, Linda, he said again, softer this time, almost apologetic. I love you, I do, but she's been there for me in ways you never could. The room spun. My heart thudded painfully in my chest, and I had to sit down, clutching the cushions as though they could anchor me against the storm of emotions threatening to drown me. I wanted to scream, to ask why, to demand that he see me, see all I had done, all I had given. But the words caught in my throat, tangled in sorrow and disbelief. I thought of every sacrifice I had made, from the day he was born. I remembered the cold nights holding him when he cried from illness, my tired hands rocking him while my own body ached from exhaustion. I remembered every scraped knee, every whispered promise that I would always be there, every birthday party meticulously planned, every tear wiped away with my own hands. Could all of that really be erased by the presence of someone else in his life? Could love, years of devotion, be so easily dismissed? Daniel, I said, my voice steadier now, tinged with anger and sorrow, do you even realize what you're saying? What about everything we've shared? Everything I've done for you? He looked down, the weight of my gaze pressing on him. I know, he whispered, almost inaudible. I know. And I'm grateful. I always will be. But my heart, it's different now. My mind raced. I remembered the letters, the notes, the secret weekend trips, the laughter that wasn't mine. My stomach churned, a mix of anger, grief, and desperation. Who is she? I demanded, my voice rising. Who has taken the place that I worked my entire life to hold? Daniel hesitated. He looked away, eyes glistening with an emotion I couldn't quite read: guilt, perhaps, or fear. Her name is Emily, he finally said. She's been there for me when I didn't even know I needed her. She understood me in ways I couldn't explain. The room felt impossibly small. I could feel the walls closing in, suffocating me with the weight of his words. Memories of our shared life flashed in my mind like a relentless slideshow. His first steps, his first words, the bedtime stories I had read countless times, the late-night talks that were meant to bridge generations and hearts. And now, according to him, none of it mattered. I struggled to hold back tears, but they came anyway, rolling down my cheeks as I spoke. Daniel, I gave you everything I had. Every ounce of love, every sleepless night, every hope for your happiness. And now, this? He flinched, as though my words cut deeper than I could have imagined. I'm sorry, he said, his voice cracking. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to say it before. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. It was the kind of silence that presses on your chest, that makes you feel trapped in the weight of unspoken truths and hidden emotions. I could feel my mind spinning, my heart aching, my body trembling. And then I asked the question that had been buried deep inside me for weeks, burning quietly until it could no longer be contained. Was I ever enough for you? His eyes filled with tears. You are everything. But sometimes, love shifts, even when you don't understand why. I never stopped needing you, Linda. I never stopped loving you. But Emily, she's been there in ways I didn't know I needed. I closed my eyes, letting the tears fall freely, letting the heartbreak wash over me, mingling with relief, confusion, and a fragile glimmer of hope. For a moment, everything felt suspended in time, my heart aching, my soul trembling, and yet, somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice reminded me that this confrontation, painful as it was, had brought truths to light that could no longer hide in the shadows. I remembered all the moments I had doubted myself, all the nights I had wondered if I had failed. But now, looking at him, I realized that love doesn't always fit neatly into our expectations. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes, it stretches beyond our understanding. Daniel, I whispered, finally finding my voice again, I don't know how this will all work. But I want to understand. I want to be there for you, no matter what. He nodded slowly, reaching out to take my hand. It was tentative, fragile, yet full of an unspoken promise. I want that too, Mom. I really do. The tension in the room didn't dissolve instantly. It lingered like a shadow, a reminder that relationships are never simple, that bonds can be tested, broken, and rebuilt. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. A recognition that even in the face of betrayal, confusion, and heartache, connection could still be nurtured. I reflected on the years we had shared, the sacrifices, the laughter, the tears, and realized that none of it had been erased. It was all a foundation, a base upon which we could rebuild, even if it would take time, patience, and courage. And I couldn't help but wonder, as I looked into Daniel's eyes, glistening with both sorrow and sincerity, what will it take for us to find our way back to each other completely? Will love, built over decades, survive the intrusion of someone new into our hearts? The room was quiet once more. The emotional storm had settled into a fragile calm, yet beneath it, currents of tension, curiosity, and anticipation continued to swirl. I knew this confrontation was not the end, it was a beginning. A beginning that would demand understanding, empathy, and the courage to face the truths that had been hidden for so long. What secrets in your family could change everything if revealed? The house was quiet, almost eerily so. The kind of quiet that presses down on your chest, making each breath feel heavier than the last. I sat in the living room, hands clasped tightly, nails digging into my palms without even realizing it. Every sound, the tick of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional car passing outside, was amplified, echoing like a drum in my head. I knew he would be home soon. Daniel. My son. The boy I had raised with all my heart, all my love, all my sacrifices. And now, he was the person who could shatter everything I thought I knew. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind countless times, but nothing could prepare me for the reality of it. Would he be angry? Afraid? Would he lash out, or would he simply ignore me as he had for weeks? The anticipation was unbearable, gnawing at my stomach, twisting it into knots. When the door finally creaked open, I saw him standing there, tall, silent, almost a shadow in the dim hallway light. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. Something in his gaze had changed, hardness, distance, a quiet intensity that made my chest ache. I swallowed, trying to steady my voice. "Daniel," I began, trembling slightly, "we need to talk." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked slowly toward the living room, each step deliberate. It was as though he knew this conversation would mark a turning point, one way or another. My heart pounded in my ears, and I could feel a hot ache rising in my throat. Why have you been avoiding me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I've been worried sick." "Is it something I did?" He stopped just short of the sofa, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. "It's not that simple," he said finally, his voice calm, almost too calm. "You wouldn't understand even if I tried to explain." I felt a surge of anger and despair at his words. Not understand? After everything I've done? After all these years? I wanted to shout, to shake him, to make him see me. "Daniel, I am your mother. I've given you everything. I've been there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every single time you needed me. You think I wouldn't understand?" He flinched at my outburst, and for a brief second, I saw hesitation in his eyes. But then he hardened again, the protective wall he had built over the past weeks rising higher than ever. "It's not just about you, Mom," he said, voice low. "It's about her. She's always been there for me in ways I didn't even know I needed. She understands me. You can't." My stomach dropped, and my hands shook. I tried to focus, to comprehend his words. Who is her? I had feared this, but hearing it aloud was a blow sharper than any I could have imagined. My mind raced through every possibility. Was it Emily? The friend I had noticed him whispering to on the phone? The one I had sensed lurking in the background of his life, but had dismissed as a fleeting distraction? I rose from the sofa, determined not to let fear or heartbreak dominate me. "Daniel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need you to be honest with me. Who is she? Why does she have this hold over you?" He looked away, eyes glistening, jaw tight. "It's complicated," he whispered. "I don't want to hurt you, but I can't lie either." I felt a surge of desperation. "You don't have to spare me," I said firmly. "I need the truth. I've given you my life, Daniel. Don't take this from me too. Tell me." His shoulders slumped slightly, and he let out a long, shaky breath. "Her name is Emily," he admitted. She's been my anchor when I felt lost, when I didn't know who to turn to. She's been there when I thought no one else could understand me. And somewhere along the way, I started relying on her more than I realized." I felt the words like a punch to the chest. I wanted to scream, to collapse, to cry. Relying on her? More than me? After everything? I could barely comprehend the depth of betrayal I felt. And yet, beneath the anger, there was a profound sadness, a sorrow that made my heart ache in ways I couldn't explain. "Do you realize what you're saying?" I asked, my voice quivering. "Do you know what it means to tell your mother she's not enough? That she's replaceable?" He flinched again, guilt flashing across his face. "I know, Mom. I do. And it kills me that I've hurt you. But I can't change what I feel. And I can't pretend anymore." I sank back into the sofa, gripping the cushions as if they could anchor me to some semblance of stability. Memories of our life together cascaded through my mind, the sleepless nights when he was sick, the late nights helping with school projects, the birthday parties I had spent weeks preparing, the bedtime stories, the laughter, the tears. All of it, erased? My chest felt tight, my throat raw with unshed sobs. "Daniel," I whispered, voice breaking, "all these years, did they mean nothing to you?" He took a cautious step closer, his own hands trembling slightly. They meant everything, he said, almost pleading. But love can be messy. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to balance the past with the present. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself, to breathe through the tidal wave of emotions threatening to drown me. Anger, sorrow, fear, confusion, and a strange, fragile hope mingled inside me, making it impossible to separate one feeling from another. I remembered all the times I had doubted myself, all the nights I had lain awake wondering if I had failed as a mother. Now, in this confrontation, the answer was painfully clear. I hadn't failed in love, but perhaps I hadn't understood the depth of his shifting heart. I opened my eyes, staring directly at him. "So, what does this mean for us?" I asked softly, though my heart pounded like a drum. "Do I just step aside? Do I pretend everything is fine while you build this new connection?" He shook his head quickly, almost desperately. "No. Mom, please, don't think that. I need you. I've always needed you. But I need her in ways I didn't understand. Can't you see? I'm torn. I'm trying to navigate this without hurting anyone. And I've failed." The words were a knife, but beneath them, a flicker of honesty, a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to survive this heartbreak, to rebuild what had been strained. But first, I had to confront not just him, but the truth. The raw, uncomfortable, devastating truth that love isn't always simple, and that sometimes, it demands resilience we never imagined we had. "Daniel," I said, voice firmer now, "I don't want to lose you. I don't want to walk away, even if your heart is divided. But you have to understand how deeply this hurts me. How can we move forward if we can't be honest with each other?" He looked at me, tears threatening to spill, and for the first time, I saw the boy I had raised, the vulnerable child beneath the armor of confusion and attachment. "I'm scared, Mom," he admitted. "Scared of losing you, scared of hurting you, scared of making the wrong choices. But I can't deny my feelings for her. And I don't want to lie anymore." I swallowed hard, feeling the storm of emotions clash inside me. This is the confrontation we've been building to, I thought. This is the moment that will decide everything. My hand shook, but I reached out, placing one gently on his shoulder. "Daniel, love is never simple. But if we can face it together, if we can speak honestly and confront the truths we've been avoiding, maybe we can find a way through." He nodded slowly, relief and fear mingling in his eyes. "I want that, Mom. I want that more than anything." And in that moment, standing on the edge of heartbreak and hope, I realized something profound. Confrontation is never just about anger or sorrow. It's about revealing truth, facing pain, and daring to imagine that even in the midst of confusion and betrayal, our love, could endure. I leaned back, closing my eyes briefly, letting the intensity of the confrontation wash over me. The silence that followed was thick but not empty. It was charged with possibility, with the unspoken promise that this conversation was not the end, it was a turning point. And though the path ahead would be uncertain, I had taken the first step. I had faced the storm, stared into the heart of confusion, and refused to let despair dictate the future. Could honesty, no matter how painful, ever heal a fractured relationship? After that confrontation, the house felt different. Not empty, not silent, but heavy with the weight of truths finally spoken. I sat in the living room long after Daniel went to his room, hands resting on my knees, staring at the walls that had witnessed decades of life, laughter, and love. I thought about everything, the sleepless nights when he was sick, the birthday parties I planned until my hands were raw, the school projects I stayed up late to finish alongside him. All those moments, all the love I poured into him, and yet, somehow, it wasn't enough for him in that way. The sting of betrayal didn't vanish immediately. It lingered like a shadow, pressing against my chest, reminding me of what I had feared, that love, no matter how deep, can sometimes feel invisible. But then, slowly, I felt a shift inside me. Not an instant fix, not a magical erasure of pain, but a quiet, resolute spark. I am still here. I am still me. I have lived, loved, and sacrificed. And that is never erased. My chest loosened slightly as I realized that my value, my worth, was not dependent on his perception alone. I rose from the sofa, brushing my hands along the arms as if to physically shake off the heaviness clinging to me. I walked to the hallway, past the photos lining the walls, birthday smiles, vacation snapshots, school recitals, family gatherings. Each image carried memory, each memory carried life. And for the first time since this storm began, I looked at them not with sorrow, but with gratitude. I picked up an old photo of Daniel as a toddler, laughing in the sunlight, tiny hands clinging to mine. I had given him the world, I thought. And that gift is mine, regardless of whether he sees it now. I smiled faintly, allowing a single tear to slide down my cheek, not from sadness this time, but from the recognition of my own resilience. The next morning, I started small. I tidied the living room, organizing photos and trinkets, rearranging furniture to feel like it was mine again. Not in a bitter or resentful way, but with intention. Each movement was symbolic, a declaration that my life would continue, and it would be lived fully, on my terms. I went through his room, not to snoop, not to pry, but to see what had become of him, to understand the world he had created separate from me. I noticed little things, a book left open on the nightstand, a framed photo of him with Emily tucked behind another picture, a note scribbled in the corner of a notebook. He is finding himself. He is making choices. And that is okay. My heart ached, yes, but it also softened with understanding. By the evening, I had made a cup of tea and settled on the porch, watching the sky change from gold to pink to deep indigo. I thought about the confrontation, the raw emotions, the revelations. And I realized that confrontation had not destroyed us, it had revealed us. It had shown us the fragile, human edges of our relationship. And in those edges, there was room for healing, for growth, for new understanding. I began to journal, pouring my thoughts onto paper, unfiltered and honest. I am hurt. I am sad. I am scared of losing my son in ways I cannot yet understand. But I am also strong. I am still here. I am still me. And I will continue to love him, not blindly, not without boundaries, but fully, without regret. Days passed. Conversations with Daniel became more open, slower, careful. We laughed again, though cautiously, as if testing the waters. We spoke about the past, about mistakes, about feelings we had buried under the weight of pride and fear. And slowly, the tension that had clung to every corner of our home began to lift. Not gone entirely, but lighter, manageable. One afternoon, I caught myself humming while dusting the shelves. The music was soft, almost meditative, but it felt like a tiny victory. A reminder that life continues, that joy can still exist alongside sorrow, that a mother's heart is capable of both deep pain and profound love simultaneously. I realized that empowerment doesn't always come from grand gestures or dramatic decisions. Sometimes, it comes from the quiet acts, choosing to rise from sadness, choosing to honor your own heart, choosing to embrace life even when it feels unfair. And in that moment, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't known in years. I am more than my role as a mother. I am a woman who has lived, who has endured, who has loved, and who will continue to love, not at the cost of myself, but alongside my own growth. I took out the photo albums again, this time looking at them with fresh eyes. Each image told a story, yes, but it was also a testament to my journey, my sacrifices, my triumphs, my perseverance. I noticed details I hadn't before, the way Daniel's tiny fingers clutched a toy, the way his eyes sparkled during a family picnic, the warmth in the smiles around us. And I understood something vital: my life had meaning beyond the approval or affection of any single person. My love had shaped him, yes, but it had also shaped me. Even as I acknowledged the pain, the fact that Daniel had leaned on someone else, that he had called another woman his anchor, I felt a burgeoning hope. Perhaps this experience would make our bond stronger, more honest, more nuanced. Perhaps it would teach us both about boundaries, about respect, about the many forms that love can take. And perhaps, just perhaps, It would remind us that family is not only blood or proximity, but also the courage to face difficult truths together. By the end of that week, I had established a new routine. Mornings with meditation and journaling, afternoons spent revisiting old hobbies, evenings with deliberate conversations with Daniel, where we shared thoughts, fears, and small joys without judgment or pretense. The house felt warmer, not because the tension had vanished, but because we were learning to coexist with it, to acknowledge the pain without letting it define us. One night, as I prepared dinner, Daniel appeared in the doorway, hesitating. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers, simple, unassuming, but given with genuine care. "For you, Mom," he said softly. "I know I've hurt you. I don't want to keep doing that. I want to try, to be honest, to be close, even if I don't have all the answers yet." I felt a lump rise in my throat, tears threatening again, but this time they were not only for sadness, they were for the fragile, renewed connection, for the glimmers of hope piercing the shadows of the past weeks. I took the flowers, inhaling their scent, and nodded. "Thank you, Daniel. That means more than you know." That night, I reflected on the journey. Confrontation had been painful, yes, and betrayal had left its mark. But from it, I had discovered my own strength, my own capacity for forgiveness, and my ability to love without losing myself. I realized that resolution is not always about perfect reconciliation. Sometimes, it is about growth, acceptance, and the courage to keep moving forward. I whispered a quiet promise to myself, as I often did in moments of reflection: I will continue to love. I will continue to care. But I will never let my heart be invisible again. I am here. I am strong. I am whole. And with that, a calm settled over the house, different from the peace of ignorance. It was the calm of understanding, of empowerment, of emotional survival. I knew there would be more challenges ahead, more emotional storms to weather, but I also knew this: I could face them. I could embrace them. I could continue to live fully, with love, courage, and clarity in my heart. Do you believe love can coexist with independence and self-respect? As I sit here, looking around this home filled with memories, I realize that being a mother is far more than biology. It is late-night prayers whispered over a sick child. It is wiping tears after a scraped knee, tucking blankets around a restless teenager, and celebrating victories, big and small, without expecting anything in return. I trace my fingers over the edges of an old photo frame, the corners worn smooth from years of handling. Inside, Daniel's smiling face catches the sunlight filtering through the window. I think about the journey we've been through, the moments of joy, the hidden hurts, the missteps, the miscommunications. Being a mother is also about resilience. About standing strong when love feels invisible, when words cut deeper than knives, and when silence stretches longer than comfort. I have learned that love is not measured by recognition alone, but by the persistence to care, even when the world, or your own child, does not seem to notice. I sip my coffee, watching its steam curl upward. It is quiet here now, but it is a comforting, thoughtful quiet. It gives me space to reflect on everything I have endured, everything I have given, and everything I have become. I realize that life doesn't always give us the closure we hope for, but it does give us opportunities to grow, to forgive, to understand, and, most importantly, to love ourselves. I want to share this with you because I know I am not alone. Many of us, especially women of our age, have felt invisible in our families, unseen despite years of dedication. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever given so much of yourself, only to feel forgotten or replaced? I want to hear your story. Life lessons, I have discovered, are often hidden in the quiet moments. In folding laundry while thinking of old times, in staring at a photo that brings both tears and smiles, in pausing to breathe deeply and remind yourself that your worth is not dictated by others' recognition. I have learned to treasure small victories, a shared laugh, a glance of understanding, a moment of connection that hints at rebuilding what was once strained. These are the things that restore hope. These are the pieces of love that cannot be erased, no matter the heartbreak. To you listening, I want you to know, your presence, your care, and your resilience matter. Even when your efforts go unseen, even when words sting or silence stretches too long, you are making a difference. Your love shapes lives, even when it is not returned in the ways you expect. And now, as I close this chapter of reflection, I invite you, yes, you watching this story, to share your own experiences. Have you ever felt invisible in your family? How did you reclaim your voice, your worth, or your peace? Your story could inspire someone else who feels lost, unseen, or unappreciated. I slowly close the photo album, my hands lingering over the worn pages. The house feels lighter somehow, filled with echoes of the past but also possibilities for the future. I have faced betrayal, confusion, and heartbreak, but I have also discovered courage, love, and resilience within myself. The final lesson I want to leave with you is simple, yet profound. Being a mother, or a caregiver, a sister, a friend, is not about being recognized for every sacrifice. It is about the unwavering choice to love, to care, and to rise, even when life challenges every expectation. I look around one last time at the objects that carry memories, a locket that belonged to my mother, a family album filled with laughter frozen in time, a steaming cup of coffee that comforts and grounds me. These small things remind me that life is made up of moments, moments of connection, of reflection, and of quiet strength. So, I leave you with this: cherish yourself. Honor your sacrifices. Recognize your own worth. And remember, even when love feels invisible, it is still there, quietly shaping hearts, and quietly shaping lives. If this story has touched you, left you questioning, or brought up memories of your own, I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe now, so you won't miss the next chapter of stories that reveal the hidden truths, the quiet struggles, and the moments that shape us all. I also want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you react if someone you loved told you, "You're not my real mother"? What would you do if you discovered secrets in your own family that changed everything you believed? Your voice matters. Your story matters. And together, we can create a space where these emotions, these struggles, and these triumphs are shared, understood, and honored. Remember, every story has another layer, another truth waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe and be part of this journey, because the next revelation might just change everything again.